Hey everyone, how's it going? My name is Richard Moglen, and welcome back to the weekly Watchlist video sponsored by MarketSmith. As always, we'll run through my focus list for this upcoming trading week and walk through both their fundamentals as well as technicals, and I'll discuss kind of the technical setup that I'm looking to trade each of these. And if you do enjoy my analysis, please go ahead and take the time right now to leave me a like down below and subscribe if you're new to the channel and want to see more videos just like this one every single week. I'm very close to hitting 50,000 subscribers, which would be a huge milestone. So please go ahead and do your part if you haven't yet and hit that button down below. With that said, let's go ahead and start with ATI here and actually go ahead and just go to the market very quickly here because I think it's really important to keep things in perspective. And you can see we're at a potential turning point here. Super strong thrust late last week on heavy volume, and we'll have to see where we progress from here. I think some sideways action kind of absorbing this move would be very, very constructive and set up a lot of nice charts. So with that in mind, that we're maybe a little bit short-term extended, but also at a very strong turning point, let's go ahead and start with ATI. Allegheny Technologies in the steel specialty alloys group is ranked 21 out of 197, so it is a leading group. Overall, really strong action recently, very strong off these lows and forming a really nice base here, and also a very strong trend above a rising 21 EMA. Going over to this prior pivot at 25, let's go ahead and draw that over. You can see it found support there about 2 weeks ago, and now we're kind of compressing against that 21 EMA. This is a setup that I really like to trade, a volatility contraction against that 21 EMA in a previously strong stock. We've also got nice action late on Friday off at 21 EMA, so I want to see a breakout through this line on volume and see if we can continue to push higher into all-time highs. Overall, in terms of fundamentals, really strong quarters in terms of growth, last quarter and the most recent quarter, and really strong estimates for both this year and the next. This is huge, and estimate revisions are up as well. In terms of fund ownership, it's pretty much flat over the past 2 years, and there's no high-quality funds in this one just yet, so there's really a play off the leading group, as well as the really strong price action. Moving on, we've got Bros, Dutch Bros here, which is not in a leading group, but there's a few kind of names in this kind of area. SG is another one we'll talk about today, Sweet Green, that are acting pretty well, and this is a recent IPO and acting pretty strong recently. And overall, in terms of fundamentals, really strong numbers recently and great estimates for especially 2023, and estimate revisions are up. Nice growth in fund ownership and 2 high-quality funds already invested into the stock. Overall, in terms of the technicals, I really like how we were able to reclaim that 50 SMA and 21 EMA and start to trend up the right-hand side here. We're into kind of logical resistance here at this previous point here near 60, as well as the IPO base high. So it would be kind of natural to see some profit taking here, some sideways action, volatility, and I'd love to see that kind of contract and form a tradable pivot right below 63.20. That would be ideal, and we'll have to see whether that happens. Maybe we get a pullback here back towards 55, and then you can buy a break of a DTL there. But overall, really strong action, really nice move here on Thursday on high volume, and we'll just have to see whether this manages to push out here above 63.20 toward its all-time high and continue to make progress. I like how it formed a higher low when the market did not, so it showed relative strength there, and how we're back above those moving averages. Next up, we've got BTU, Peabody Energy Corp. Once again, this is a leading group here. It's been very strong, trending above a rising 21 EMA. We've got the breakout from the base right here, a pullback last week. Then we pushed up and formed an inside day on Friday. I'm looking for a breakout from that inside day and a push up towards that 25 level. Overall volume is increasing, getting a little bit wide and loose here. So I would like to see a really strong push and definitely put my stop at break even pretty quickly. This would be more of a swing trade setup. And overall, really strong earnings in the most recent quarter and really strong estimates for 2022. Definitely a decrease in 2023, but estimate revisions are up. And overall, the past 4 quarters or so, we are seeing an increase from 172 to 284 funds invested. Really strong action. And once again, this is a leading stock in a leading group, and we're seeing the volume come in up the right-hand side. Moving on, we've got Lnth, and this is another one that had a super strong move on volume. This was a breakout on earnings from a stage 3 base, huge volume coming in, and so far it's progressed well and held up super strongly during this market correction, and did push up late last week, so it's a little bit short-term extended here, but going over to a 60-minute chart, we've got a little bit of a pivot right in this area. It's having trouble with 56, so I'd love to see a breakout on volume here through that level, but we could obviously get a pullback into this prior range, see if that holds around 50. So this is kind of up in the air. It just has to form out a setup here, but it's definitely a strong stock to have on your radar. And we've got great earnings sales margins, the most recent 3 quarters, acceleration basically in all these metrics, pretty much for 4 quarters straight. Great estimates for this year and nice fall through in 2023 with estimates up as well. Overall, looking at the fund ownership, gradual increase over the past 2 years. Moving on, we've got NEM kind of representing the mining, gold, silver type names, ranked 14 out of 197, that overall group. So leading group here. Going over to a weekly, we have a really nice long basing pattern, which is just kind of poking its head up above here. So we'll have to see whether this can stick and if we can get a nice trend out of this base. Going back over to a daily, we did have a pullback to the 21 EMA. The breakout was down here and that pivot was 70.37. We're back below 75 here, but forming a little bit of a spot right in this area. 2-2 reversal potentially Monday off the 21 EMA area. So definitely one to have on your radar. Not too much to say in terms of the growth numbers, but this overall group has been quite strong, and we do have one high quality fund invested into the stock. Moving on, we've got another steel related name, NUE, Nucor Corp. Overall strong action recently and forming a little bit of a pivot right at 140, as well as basically this range right here. Overall, it's just poking above the stage 2 base. Really strong earnings, sales margins in the most recent 4 quarters. Estimates aren't great, but estimate revisions are up. And you've got a nice increase over the past 2 years in fund ownership and one high quality fund in there as well. So once again, a leading stock in a leading group trending above the 21 EMA and forming a little bit of a volatility contraction right at this level above the 21 exponential moving average. Moving on, we've got NVDA, which is definitely short-term extended, but is right up against this prior pivot. We made it back above the 21 EMA, 200 SMA, and 50 SMA. And right now, I think the optimal scenario would be some sideways action, some flagging here, and maybe a pullback to 250, undercut and reclaim of that, shake out some weak holders, and then a push through this prior basically resistance point, break out through that pivot, and a continuation of the right-hand side back towards 300 and also the 350 level. So definitely want to watch here. And this overall group has been acting super well. We saw great action from RMBS, ACLS, as well, of course, as GFS. Really strong numbers in terms of earnings, sales margins in the most recent 4 quarters. Great estimates for this year as well as the next, and estimate revisions are up. And you've got great growth in fund ownership and a whole bunch of high quality funds invested into this stock. Moving on, we've got SEDG representing the solar names here. Not too much to say in terms of earnings growth, but you do have decent estimates for next year of 54%, although estimate revisions are down. Overall, super strong growth in fund ownership and one high quality fund in here. And we've got a pivot forming at 335.57 from the stage 1 cup with handle. I like to push in a little bit earlier, maybe through this level. And also Friday's high is a point I'm watching as well. We did have a gap down on a secondary here, but it held that 300 level. And going over to a weekly, this is acting pretty well within this longer term base after that super strong run that basically all the solar names had in 2020. And if we can continue to move up and break out, this could start a really extended uptrend like we saw back in this area. So SEDG, definitely one to have on your radar as the overall solar group shapes up. Moving on, we've got Sweetgreen, another recent IPO to watch. Negative action on Friday, but it was super extended in the short term. So I'd love to see it kind of stick this level, maybe undercut 36.33 a little bit more, and then kind of rally back above and tighten and go sideways. And then you could have a breakout of that range and see if it can make its way back above 40 and towards these all-time highs. Overall, great sales growth. Not much to say in terms of earnings. It's not yet profitable, but you already have a whole bunch of high-quality funds invested into the stock. Moving on, we've got Terawolf Inc, and this is once again more of a swing trade setup, very tight after a huge push on volume. And it's funny because TC2000 over here has it kind of IPOing right in this area. So we'll have to see what the actual IPO date is. But regardless, this isn't maybe one that you hold and look for an extended move based on the fundamentals. It's more of a play on the super strong push up on volume, tightness, and then a breakout of the range. Let's go over to a 60-minute chart. You can see how tight it is here. So I'm looking for a breakout through 8. And this is also just a more speculative play because of the price and volume action. Moving on, let's talk about the sales. Nice growth the past 2 quarters. No estimates here, and you can see it's very under-owned here. So once again, not really a classic can slim type stock, but one to play if you're into that kind of momentum burst type setup. Moving on, we've got GFS, super strong action up the right-hand side last week. Definitely short-term extended, so I want to see a pullback to that prior pivot, and ideally for that to hold, maybe we get a shakeout and reclaim of that, that could be actionable to enter. And then I want to see a progression and push out here from this pivot. Great numbers in terms of earnings and sales in the most recent 2 quarters. Great estimates for next year as well. Already 233 funds invested into the stock and no high quality funds in there just yet. Lastly, we've got Acls, very strong action along with GFS last week, finishing right at the highs above 80 on large volumes. Once again, short-term extended, I want to see a flag here, tightness, and then basically reconfirmation through that high and through that range. If it does form, maybe we get a constructive pullback under that 75 level. Great earnings sales margins, the most recent 4 quarters, great estimates for this year and the next, and a nice increase in fund ownership. So overall, that's pretty much it for this week's watch list. Let me know your thoughts on these setups down below, and maybe give me your kind of top 3 from this list that you're watching as well for next week. And if there's any stocks that I forgot to mention, let me know down below in the comment section if you think I should keep an eye on them. And with that said, I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And definitely go ahead and leave a like. It just takes a second out of your day if you did enjoy this video. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one every single week. And thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in future videos. Peace.